Welcome to the Essential Alchemy Podcast with your host, Jodi Cohen.
Hi, I'm Jodi Cohen, and I'm so excited to be joined by my friend Christy Maudsley. And she is a licensed acupuncturist, a certified life coach, and a rapid transformation therapy practitioner dedicated to helping others experience wholeness and well-being. She believes in the power of connection on all levels, divine, interpersonal, and within the self, to bring about profound healing. She guides people in learning to work with their own nervous system to facilitate intentional learning. So I'm excited. We were able to connect at a conference recently where you were basically showing me how you use a lot of our oils on acupuncture points.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about kind of the patient population that you attract and what kind of, how did you start playing with essential oils and acupuncture points?
Yeah, thanks. I get a lot of the classic acupuncture patients, high anxiety, high stress, chronic stress, can't sleep, can't wake up in the morning. So I have that. And then I have lots of chronic pain patients, and people with complex medical needs, chronic issues that the medical system has struggled to figure out. Some of the people that come to me really don't like needles. You would think that they wouldn't go to an acupuncturist, but sometimes, they're at their wits' end and they're like, just give me something that will help. And so it's really nice to be able to use oils from time to time in the office and with home recommendations for things like sleep, anxiety, sometimes pain. That tends to be, they're blended in with other things. But like I mentioned to you at the conference, there's a great set of points right under the little bumps on the ankle, the lateral and medial malleolus, and the points right under those. Kidney 6, bladder 62 are intended, and they support the circadian rhythms in the body. And so applying the circadian rhythm oils there is incredibly effective. And people will find that they wake up more easily in the morning, people who really struggle with that part of circadian rhythm. And I think, like I mentioned to you, I like to drop a drop of the parasympathetic into the belly button. And there's such a massive nerve plexus in that area. And so sometimes if people are just chilling, but I can tell that they need to be taken down a little tiny bit more, that's a great one for helping unwind the nervous system. So it just gives us another tool to get in there, and especially with needle sensitive patients, to apply these on acupuncture points directly.
Well, and I love that because it's always been my belief. I'm a big fan of layering modalities, right? And I feel like oils work on a number of different levels. They're able to kind of access our system, their frequency, but they also work on our sense of smell. They work on our skin. And when we can apply that frequency on the right point, it almost, it's like, the star-crossed love. It aligns so well. And so I'm so fascinated with some of the points, that you've been playing with. Like I actually am a fan of the belly button as well. I tend to do it before bed, and I've been using either the fascia release to kind of help with unwinding or anti-inflammatory, because I found that point helps kind of with all gut inflammation. But I'm curious, like what other things, like I love acupuncture. For me, it was a lot with detox, with liver support. Like I had a lot of liver energy. So I'm wondering if, for someone that maybe we combine either the liver or the gallbladder points, what would be some of your recommendations?
Well, so let me ask you, do you have a question? Do you have any oils that work directly on anger specifically?
So we have one called liver support
Okay.
that is really designed to move liver anger. My sister loves it around her period, really like that, really hangry. And I have some different theories about why the period kind of brings that up, and how liver anger presents. I also think that's part of like that menopause meanness.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's a point, right? In between the first and second toe, you go down a little bit until you kind of get to the V of the triangle. It's a really powerful liver point, just a little bit above the bottom of the V. And massaging oils there, it's going to be really tender if someone's liver is congested and if they have a lot of stuck anger, if they have just a physically congested liver, if it's overloaded with viruses or whatever number of things could be congesting the liver. It's going to be tender, but it's a great point to massage for a couple minutes with an oil like that. that would be awesome. And then, if you go right down from the nipples, you go down to right below the breast area, kind of right around the bra line area, and whatever the, equal of that is if you're a guy. There's a point there also going to be really tender. It's a neurolymphatic point, and you're going to massage that and you will feel it, especially if you're stressed, angry, if you have that liver congestion going on. And that would be such a great place to apply that oil too. And then knowing also when the liver is congested, it's going to, in Chinese medicine, we say it overacts on the spleen, right? So people come in with digestive issues all the time. And I say, and they're like, I don't know, I'm eating a perfect diet, I'm doing everything right. And I'm like, okay, what's your stress level like? How often are you feeling anger and frustration? How are you processing that? And once we start, they start making that connection that, the liver's overacting on the spleen, right? And this is leading to the digestive issues. And so we have to actually start with the stress and with decongesting the liver and really and bringing out, getting some pathways for that anger. That's, I also do somatic coaching because it's so important for people to learn to process some of this stuff through their bodies and move it out and not just stay stuck or take an anti-anxiety med, which, they have their place, but there are more gentle ways to move some of this. So working on the liver is also going to help for those people with digestive issues.
You brought up so many valid points. It's so funny, like that point, that was always my ouch point. Like that always stuck the needle in there. And that was always the one that hurt the most for me because I had so much liver energy. And I definitely, for those of us that are listening, the livers and gallbladder are on the right side of the body, the spleen and the pancreas are on the left. Like it was so interesting to me because once I started processing a lot of the liver things, my challenges moved to the spleen. And I was always like, that like my spleen never seemed, or kidneys. My spleen never seemed to complain before, but now it's heating up. So we have a whole emotional balance blend line, and we have like a liver one for anger. We have a spleen one for worry. We also have a spleen energy one, a spleen chi. And then we have one for the kidneys for fear, which I've no, my experience is that fear and anger kind of go in tandem with each other.
Yeah, what I see is that, anger is often a layer over fear. Fear is the layer underneath, right? And so it's like, we kind of have to support both. They work bidirectionally. And often, yeah, once you peel off that layer of anger, you have a layer of grief and a layer of fear, right? One or the other, and usually both. And again, this is one of the reasons I think Chinese medicine is so brilliant and somatic work is so brilliant. Because somebody can come in with the most perfect diet and a great exercise regimen and tell me that they're meditating every morning and they still are miserable and they don't know why. It's like, well, we got to work on the emotional layer. And with Chinese medicine, it's a way in because I can put a needle on a grief point, right? And somebody who hasn't been able to touch into grief, it can start allowing it to move. People who have fear around grief, we support the kidneys, right? Like we give them more of that internal support, that physiological support so that they can touch into those emotions more easily. So you're coming at it bottom up and top down. And I just think for me, that's been the healing work in my own journey and in so many people I work with. You got to do both.
No, I love that. Could you share some of the points for the kidneys that maybe the kidney oil would help with, or the grief points that maybe our lung oil would help with?
Yeah. So, it kind of depends on how kidney issues are manifesting in the person in front of me. If it's manifesting with like low back pain and knee pain, I'd probably put because there's in Chinese medicine, we have the kidney channel, but then there's
Yes.
adjacent channels. There's like, it gets a little complicated, but anyway,
I'm
you can
sorry.
put the oils over the low back
Yeah.
and anywhere really on the low back, and
Yes.
you're going to hit the kidney channel sort of indirectly.
Perfect.
And then also, right up the middle of the body in the front, right below
Oh,
the belly button
oh,
is the Ren channel. But Ren 4 and 6, these points here are fabulous for the kidneys. They're great for people with low energy, but also people with like that emotional stuckness.
yeah.
So those are super, super helpful points. And I would definitely use those. And then kidney 1 on the bottoms of the feet is always going to be a super grounding point when people just need that deep grounding and to be able to settle into their bodies. We say when somebody it looks like they're floating outside their body, like either with anxiety or they're just so rattly or so anxious or so restless. We say it's like unanchored shin, right? The shin's like
Oh.
up there floating around the body. And I think that the somatic way of saying that is like you're dissociated or you're disembodied, right? I think this is a similar concept to unanchored shin. It's not always one for one, but I think it's close enough. And so it's like we're really working on like getting the spirit to settle into the body, right? And people can feel when they're in that place or not, and practicing little by little, settling the spirit into the body. And when you put those oils or, acupuncture needle on the bottom of the foot, kidney 1 point, you're just giving extra support toward pulling the spirit back in to the body, getting a little bit more embodied.
When you're really speaking my language, this whole idea of the emotions kind of lie at the root of everything and that people really don't know what to do with them, which is why, like if you were raised to be like a good girl, you're not really allowed to get angry, right? If, like suck it up buttercup, you're not allowed to be afraid. You just kind of keep going. And I mean, I'll speak to myself. That was kind of my upbringing. And so I had all these feelings that I didn't really know what to do with. So I just kind of stuffed them. And now that I'm older and safer and trying to work through them, I'm kind of in love with somatic exercises. Can you kind of share for people who may not be familiar with somatic practices, what they are and how you help people with that?
Yeah, well, I'll just start by saying I feel like a huge part of my work with most patients, as well as most coaching clients, ends up being at the beginning, hey, your experience is valid. And we're gonna let you learn that in an embodied way, right? And that can take a long time, especially when we've spent our whole lives being invalidated by the culture, our parents, love parents, but whatever the system was that we were born into, like your experience isn't valid. It doesn't really matter that much. And how you feel and what you think doesn't really matter. And so then I get people who come in and they're like, well, I'm in pain all the time. And I'm like, okay, well, and what are you doing about that? And how are you managing your stress? And they're sort of like, well, I just get through it. I just push through, or I'm just constipated. I go poop twice a month and my doctors told me it was okay. And so, I'm just going to deal with it. I,
Talk about bottling up your feelings.
oh my gosh. But this is like, most people come in with
Yeah.
some variation of that. Like, here's my experience, here's my suffering. Doesn't really matter that much, and I'm going to learn how to push through, right?
Yes.
And so a lot of healing is just from my perspective, from my experience, is just learning to say, uh, no, it does matter. We're going to pay attention to how you feel, and we're going to honor it and see what you need. And even when a needle goes in, like with the way I needle, because I'm a somatically trained coach, I watch their body reaction when a needle goes in. And so if a needle goes in and they're flinching, that needs to either be backed off or we need to take a minute and breathe. We need to see what's happening in the system because we're getting information that we've been trained to silence. And the silencing of that information is what makes us sick. And so when we stop, we pause and we say, what's actually going on here? Let me feel that. Is there an associated emotion? Is there an associated thought? Maybe even a memory. Memories come up. I'll insert a needle, not know a woman had something happen in that area, right? And a memory will come up. And so there's a lot that happens somatically in my acupuncture practice. And then with coaching clients, it's really just a process of exploring, okay, here are your goals, here are your values, but we're going to do this really somatically. So you can say, I want that goal. I want that job, or I want to have a family. And then every time you start talking about it, your body clenches, right? Or you have this wave of grief that you don't stop and look at, right? Like that is valuable information, and paying attention to it leads us to that connection with self that leads to healing.
I love what you said. I mean, it never occurred to me like that point we were talking about. I always white knuckled it through that. I white knuckle through so much. What I think I hear you saying is that almost reinforces the trauma, that it's not about like pushing through. It's about kind of allowing things to move out.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Wow.
Mm. Yeah, and I have a modality I created called somatic acupuncture, which is sort of a separate thing because that is, it's deep somatic work in an acupuncture context. And so when people are coming in for regular acupuncture, I'm still bringing in some of those tools and watching things and not re-traumatizing, not saying, well, that hurts, let's just keep going, and there are, acupuncture points can be uncomfortable, but with acknowledgement and with permission and consent and saying, what's your body okay with today? Can you handle 2 more needles or not? Right? Like there's an honoring that needs to happen to develop that muscle of listening to your own inner yes and no, which is the foundation of the relationship with self, listening to your inner yes and no and honoring it. Like, how can you have a good relationship with yourself if you can't do that?
Oh my goodness. And that's what, when we're disassociating, we're ignoring ourselves, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, dissociation has its place. It's like sometimes life is too much and you got to just watch a show for an hour because but it's like with consent, like, hey, self, this is so overwhelming. Are you okay if we just go watch that show for an hour? I don't mean to, because I think dissociation gets a bad rap, understandably, but it has its place and it was adaptive at a time. It's just, are we in choice, right? Like, are we at choice in how we use it, or are we just checking out, falling apart, not knowing what's happening?
Yeah. So I have an interesting question for you. There's something that I've been playing with, which is this idea of, transmuting emotions. Like, there's that book that just came out, Amy Griffin's The Tell, which is kind of about like sexual abuse and trauma. And there were things in that I'm like, I wonder, like, there were things that felt familiar. And what she does is she finds out this information and then she kind of falls into a tailspin. And then she kind of falls into revenge. Like basically, once she has the information, it's not like it empowers her to kind of move through it. And so I've wondered, like what do people do? We all have, no one escapes. We all have our yuck, right? And it's not necessarily about re-traumatizing, reliving, getting revenge. I think it's more about just saying, like exactly what you're saying, validating, like, okay, this happened and what are my choices now? But I don't really know. I definitely use oils to help with that. But I'm so curious how you work with people. Like, what is
Mm.
that?
Yeah, I mean, what I think you're speaking to, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but first there's this massive, massive piece, of grieving. Like
Yes.
we skip over that. And it's the resistance to grieving and like full embodied grieving that can keep us at such a heightened nervous system level, you
Do you
know?
know that our society is so uncomfortable? There's a girl that a childhood friend that when my son died, she was like, I can't really be around you. And I'm like, okay, whatever, I respected that. And then oddly, I ran into her about a year ago and she was like, oh, let's get together. And I was like, this is strange. And I'm like, you said you couldn't be around me. She's like, oh, but you seem better now. What I read into was like she didn't really want to like feel any of my feelings. So if there was any danger of her feeling kind of like associated grief, she didn't want any of it.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my gosh. And right, this is the work. It's our tolerance for sensation because emotions are just, they boil down to sensations in the body, right? And what we can stay with and be with gives us the experience of like, oh, it's okay to feel this. It's safe to feel this. And then we can feel it and then it moves. If we can't be safe with that sensation, if we don't have that resourcing either externally, internally, however we get our resourcing, if we don't have the resourcing to feel safe, to feel that sensation, it's never going to move. Maybe it'll move a little bit. Maybe we can use lots of tools, but it's not fundamentally going to move because it's never had the nervous system being with it like you're safe. And this is people who get stuck in chronic pain loops too. It's the same thing. They never actually feel safe enough to go and be with that core pain. And this is I'm not blame. There's no blame here. It's just,
No, it's
you know,
fascinating. It's like that there's a monster at the back of the book. You're so afraid of the potential of experiencing something that you keep it at arm's length. And the trick is to like give yourself the capacity to like once you feel it, it will move through you.
right. And that's like easier said than done, because like what it really means to get that internal nervous system safety, to be able to be with the deepest of our pain and those sensations that feel terrifying to our systems. For some people, including myself, that's required a ton of support, right? Like I do internal family systems in my coaching practice, and that has created a lot of resourcing for me. And then in doing polyvagal theory, I'm always helping people build up the ventral vagal energy, because without that, without something to fall to resource to connect to, we don't actually have the support in place to be with and hold those sensations. We've got to build that into our nervous system. And so, yeah, when people don't have that resource and can't fully feel grief, I think it can be hard to transmute things. Like I think we can gain a lot of coping skills. I think we can go out in the world and we can have like lots of options with how we deal with things, but like fundamental transmutation of that material can be really difficult.
That is so interesting. Like that is, it is like layers of an onion, right? I started this company in 2012 and basically have been working on my vagus nerve since then. And then
Mm.
I realized that the vagus nerve isn't in isolation. Like if my lymph is congested, that compromises the vagus nerve. So I started working on the lymph. Then I realized that the fascia wraps around the lymph and the vagus nerve. And if that is, I basically think I have a lot of gripping,
Yeah.
like I got stuck in fetal position, and
Mm.
unraveling that has been interesting. So I added that, but basically it was at a certain point, I actually had the capacity, the bandwidth to start processing these things. And to your point, it's intense, but now I can do it and release it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and not have the fear that we'll stay stuck there forever, or that we can't tolerate that sensation or that feeling. But then once we can be with it, we can witness it, we can sometimes, I'm sure with inner work, there's a lot of need to go back and give our younger self that missed experience, that corrective experience, whatever we didn't have at that age when we were told, hey, shut up, what you have to say doesn't matter, how you feel doesn't matter, your needs don't matter, you're not allowed to say no, whatever it was. That younger self needs that corrective experience, right? And then that translates into our adult experience. So that's a piece of it too.
For me, it's also been, I don't know if I'm doing that part right, but I've been doing the heart oil for compassion. Like I've just kind of, instead of, I've just been trying to hold empathy and compassion for my younger self and what I didn't know. And the
Yeah.
coping mechanisms I adapted because that, my infant self, my toddler self, like those were really the only choice that seemed like the only option at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah, exactly. That's a corrective experience, like you're going back and like, yeah, what did we know? Like we were just trying to survive, And then I mean, I don't know what if you do any family constellation stuff, but what we do from zero to whenever we leave our parents' financial provision is what our nervous system figures out works for survival. And so it will keep repeating that, right? And so there's a lot that's on autopilot and so programmed in, you know.
You do family constellations?
I'm not a facilitator. I just participate in a lot. Yeah. Yeah. It's
No,
it's fine.
it's been a minute. That would actually be a really good choice for me to revisit. I would love it if you could let's in the links below kind of include how to work with you on that, because
Yeah.
can you share for people that are like, what are you talking about? What
Yeah.
that is?
Yeah, yeah. Family constellations is an incredible modality that was developed by Bert Hellinger, I think back in the 40s or 50s. And basically, it's kind of like I describe it to people as kind of like a Gestalt parts work kind of thing, which is
Yeah.
it's just one of those modalities that you have to experience to understand. But if the idea is that we hold energies for our ancestors, and things get passed down, and we could look at the scientific ways that could actually happen epigenetically or otherwise. It doesn't really matter when you do the constellations and you see it. It's you're watching it happen, and you are able to pass back things that don't belong to you that you might have been carrying. And sometimes when we have traumas happen in a family, it's because things are being carried for ancestors that need to be passed back. And that's really oversimplifying it. It's a very profound modality. And I think when I see a lot of people who have done a lot of physical work, so they've got their diet managed and they've detoxed and their home environment is clean and they're not, you know, covered in Wi-Fi and everything else, although that's very few and far between. And they're also doing the emotional work. They go to therapy, maybe they do parts work, they do somatic work, they get acupuncture, and there's still something missing. Many times you'll see really dysfunctional relationships, like they're out of place in their family line, right? Like they're in the mom role to their mother, right? And that creates so many problems with being able to receive and all sorts of other stuff that I won't go into. But
And I've had it done a couple ways. Like I've almost had it like I was with the person and they did it like a chessboard and they moved things around. I had
mhm.
another experience where they had me kind of be a chess piece. Like we used, certain things on the floor to represent like my parents. And it was very interesting. And it definitely shifted dynamics and energy and kind of, I almost want to say it opened energetic space to allow for a new possibility.
Yeah, it's incredible. And even, just doing constellations somehow without having any work done with me and my parents, because they're, I mean, they're boomers and I don't think they're in a place to want to do any kind of like therapy. And I love them. And it has shifted so much in my relationship to them. And it's shifted so much in my own life just by working at that, working on this in the constellations field. It's pretty incredible.
Feel like sorry, my dogs are getting excited. In like for people that are like, this feels overwhelming, where do I start? Constellations is a nice way to shift it's a bit of an emotional car wash. Like it helps to move energy, in kind of a way that doesn't require you to re-traumatize and re-experience things.
Yeah, yeah, it doesn't. And sometimes stuff will still be really hard to see, or there'll just be grief that needed to move. My family got constellated last week and my half brothers were part of this constellation, and seeing the representative of my half brother and just seeing the way I mean, represented his energy so well. And the people who represent they really don't know you. They don't know anything about your family. So
Oh, yeah, I've done that too, where it's
it's
been your group and you kind of role play for or you're assigned.
Yeah, you're representing. Yes. And
Yeah.
and the guy didn't even know who he was representing because I was doing a blind constellation where you get tapped in blind and you don't know who you're representing. And I had so much grief release that just needed to move. And that's trapped otherwise, right? Not just within me, but within my family system. And so just getting to witness this person representing my half brother, getting to cry and just let that move and see him in a new way, see my mom in a new way, and there's just so much more love in the system. He says that the point of constellations is basically healing our perceptions. And so when we heal our perceptions, it changes so much in the whole system and within us.
No, I love that. Could you speak more to kind of what somatic, like I think of somatic as kind of being in the body, but I have a feeling you're going to give me a much better definition.
Hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, there's embodiment and there's somatic. These words get kind of mixed,
Interchange.
like they're
Yeah.
interchanged, but they're not always interchangeable. Embodiment, I think of the most basic level of embodiment as like, Jodi, you need to go pee, so get up and go to the bathroom, right?
Yeah.
You hear your own body telling you, I need to go pee, and you get up and go to the bathroom. Or you're getting you're receiving an acupuncture needle and you're like, oh, that didn't feel good. Something's moving. Can you adjust that? Right? Maybe that's not the best example, but it's I'm in my body. I can feel what's happening. Like if I'm clenching, this is a lot of people who are disembodied. What I see is these chronic holding patterns because they
Yes.
aren't in their body and they don't even recognize that it's happening, right? And so I mean, like that's that disembodiment. And so embodiment is a practice over and over. Okay, like I can feel from the inside out what's going on with my sensory body internally, right? Like throughout the whole thing, my organs,
Right.
what's needed, my needs. And then there's somatic work is, that can be approached so many different ways. But let's say you come and you say, I have this decision I need to make, right? And here are the two options, right? And we're thinking through it and we can really get in our heads and analyze things and maybe even talk about your values and your strengths and bring in great concepts, great coaching concepts. But we're not listening to the body. When you think about this option, what happens in your body? right? And when you think about this option, what happens in your body? That's really, really powerful. More at like a coach level. And then when we're talking about, and sometimes, working at a more therapeutic level, it's like, okay, so there's this pain that you keep having, or there's this I don't know, this fight you keep having with your brother. What's happening in your body? Let's pay attention. Let's watch it. Let's see what happens. And if we give a little intervention, what happens? If we say this, what happens? What do you notice? This is how the energy fundamentally at the core level starts to change, shift, and move, right? And unwind the nervous system. And sometimes it's more heightening. It's like, oh wow, that happens. And then, and that's where resourcing comes in, and working on that ventral vagal tone so that people can go back to ventral vagal and can support those kinds of unfoldings.
I love that. So it's really about kind of almost feeling safe in your body and
Yeah.
noticing how you feel, how you respond.
Mm. Yeah, and feeling safe in your body. I mean, that's an ongoing practice, I think, for most people.
Yeah.
Like I think, from the school system saying you have to go pee. No, it's not the time. Okay, I have to override my body. I have to gaslight myself. Like there's so much
Yeah.
self-gaslighting, cultural gaslighting, all of that. Learning to feel safe in our bodies is super important for healing, but it's also one of those buzz terms right now. Like, I just need to feel safe in my body. Yes. And that's like just so multifactorial, from my perspective.
Yeah, no, I love
Yeah.
that. Say more. Say more
Yeah.
about that.
I mean, I think it can be so many things. Like, why do we feel unsafe in our bodies? Is it because like our energy is vibrating in an insane non-human way because we're surrounded by 5G and Wi-Fi? Is it because like I have heavy metals in my body that are literally amping up my neuroimmune system so much that I'm like
Yeah.
vibrating? Do I feel unsafe in my body because of memories and traumas that are stored in the tissues, right? That never got seen.
You have to look at the root cause.
Yeah, there's just lots of root causes for most people.
No, I
Yeah.
love that. And I love that we kind of talked about anger and some of the reflex points that we can use for anger, especially, the web of the big toe.
Yeah, and the web of the big toe. And actually, as you're pointing there, this is another good one to use with the web of the big toe. That same point on the kind of between the fingers,
Oh, on
right?
the fingers and the toes.
And the toes. It's kind of a mirror if you think about it. But those
Yeah.
those are both points that are needled when people come in with really stuck liver energy.
No, I love that. And then the low back for kind of fear and the kidneys, and also right under the nipple point on the breast.
Mhm.
And then go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. And down right below the belly button. Hmm.
And the
There's a
bottom of the foot,
line there.
the point on the foot.
Yeah.
And then what about for grief? Are there points that I mean, I know this is kind of a generalist and everyone's different, but are there
Yeah.
any points that you really like?
I love lung 3 for grief, which is kind of, I don't know if you can see me on here, but if you're kind of coming down at the armpit crease and you
Yeah.
put your hand there to measure.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like right on the armpit crease and you come down the middle of the bicep. That's lung 3.
Okay.
And I love that point for working with grief. Sometimes when I needle that on people, they'll just, they will cry a little bit. It can move things. It works with the lung system. And yeah, I mean, I think creating the space for somebody to sink into grief, um, that physical support can help with that.
Yes.
'Cause
Yes.
it's like, yes, we're trying to make it more easeful to feel safe with the grief. That's a big piece of it. And like putting some oil on that point can help that. Right.
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
we need, if possible, the grief to actually move. Like how do we create the conditions for the grief to actually move, to feel less overwhelming and then be able to actually move? It's kind of both.
No, and it's funny because I use the heart one, and then I created a limbic reset one. The limbic system is the most accessible to smell to kind of help with that dorsal vagal and amygdala overwhelm. Uh,
Mm.
and I've been kind of I keep playing. I'm a work in progress and imperfect perfection, but everything you've said, like I love everything you said. I'm curious what else, like obviously you've been doing this for decades. You're very well versed. like everyone should work with you.
Mm.
Are there other modalities that you bring in? Are there other things that people should know about?
You mean just for healing in general, or that I do?
Well, that you do, and also that you found helpful for kind of this emotional healing,
Yeah.
that ventral vagal
Yeah.
safety net.
Totally. Well, okay, so I'll just mention functional medicine. I do functional medicine. And the reason I do, even though I'm not a fan of putting people on 20 supplements and having them stay on them for life, and that's just not my approach, but I do think it can be so useful to say, hey, what's going on in the body? Let's do a stool test. Let's figure out if there's some kind of pathogen that's just making your nervous system feel extra unruly, right? I actually think it's really important. And sometimes targeted supplementation can be incredible for people. And when
Yeah.
we support the physical that way, then it's like the psyche has a little more space to open up.
Well, no, you're totally right. Metals, mold, parasites, all of these things can throw us off.
Oh yeah, massively, massively. And then as far as the emotional work, personally, I love somatic IFS, internal family systems. I think somatic IFS is incredible. We're working with sensations in the body that essentially represent different parts of the psyche. And by working with them in a safe container where we have that self energy or that ventral vagal energy, um, we're providing what those parts need to feel seen, to have a voice, to be recognized so that they stop feeling like they need to grab the driver's wheel, which is what they're doing when they take over our lives.
No, I
Does
love
that
it.
make sense?
Perfect. Can you share more about how people can find you and work with you?
Yeah. My website is wholenessacupuncture.com. And the other one is Flourishing Life with Christy. Either of those people can find me, and yeah, I'd love to connect.
And is there anything that I didn't ask you that you'd like to share?
Hmm. Yeah, I think I've probably already said it a few times, but I think it's beautiful to incorporate multiple modalities and doing the diet and functional medicine, bringing in things like oils and applying at home, right? Like finding these points and being really consistent because that is uh, restorative care for your system, right? When you provide that, it's not just a physical thing, it's an emotional thing and it's a reparative experience for you as a person.
No, I love this. I could talk to you for hours. This was so interesting. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks, Jodi.